Suddenly we were shipped out of Ravensbrück, and outside in the middle of nowhere, the train stopped, and we heard the Germans outside discuss our fate. We were all going to be shot in these open fields. We just couldn't believe that after all that we endured, this is where we're going to end our lives. Well, soon they opened the door, and suddenly I think they received new orders, because instead of shooting us, they doled out to us a handful of raw macaroni and a handful of sugar, just plain sugar. And we thought, well, this probably belongs to the kitchen, and they were going to cook it. But because of unusual circumstances, they didn't have a chance to cook it, so they brought it along. And they doled it out to us. And after not eating for 3 days, this is what was given to us. But still, it's better than to die, which we were about to get. We haven't eaten for 3 days, and we were just moving back and forth aimlessly in the cattle cars. Finally, we stopped in this large meadow. There were no buildings there, just nothing but just green grass, and we heard the Germans outside discuss our fate. We were all going to be shot, they said, in this place. And of course, we were not exactly very happy about this, although there were some of us who were grateful that the day finally came, which they thought will eventually happen, only we didn't know when. Well, so when I was given this macaroni and cheese, I held up my gray dress to receive my ration, but I was totally unaware that there were holes in my dress. So when they plopped it in there, and to my horror, when I looked, they were going right through the holes of my dress. I realized that I must have been in such bad shape that I wasn't aware that there were holes, and I looked on the mushy tall grass, and that's where the sugar and the macaroni ended up. And so I decided to pick up a few macaroni, even though they were raw, and the sugar was a total loss. And in the process of bending down, in picking them up, I was hit by a German guard, and I over here. And I remember the first one, and I set me up in a circular spin. And then I remember the second one, and I just collapsed, and I lost consciousness. I really would have died there had not some of my fellow inmates still been capable of human feelings and compassion. I was told later that they carried me back to the cattle car, and in the process, a German guard asked them, "Why are you carrying that dead Jew with you?" And they said, "No, she just fainted. She's not dead." And so they just continued to carry me. And when I heard them tell me that, I said, "And you didn't weigh any more than I did, and you carried me?" Says, "That's what we did for you." And I, naturally, it was very nice when we met together at a reunion in Germany, and I heard this story firsthand after so many years. Well, Count Folk Bernadotte took us all the way to Denmark, and I slept a good part of the way. I kept waking up periodically, but I always just wanted to sleep. So I realized that I probably had a concussion from the beating. I arrived in Copenhagen and in this beautiful terminal, all in one piece. But there were reminders that Denmark was still under German rule, for the guards were going by the train. Nobody could get off, of course, with guns over their shoulders and dogs holding onto leashes of dogs. So we were, and the Danish people were behind barricades, and eventually they broke through the barricades and came up to the train to hand us brown bags that they had in their hands. And they had little flags in their hands, and they said something in Danish that obviously was a welcoming sound. But it was the cheerful faces that we needed. When did we see cheerful faces welcoming us? So this was the beginning of a good era for us. We were then transferred to ferry boats and taken across the Öresund, which is a body of water between Denmark and Sweden. And we were taken to Malmö, Sweden. I think it's the second largest city in Sweden, in southern Sweden. We were taken to a huge, beautiful high school with an Olympic-sized swimming pool where we were fumigated from head to toe with DDT, and we were showered, received new clothes, and we started a new life there. From there, we were taken to Landskrona, Sweden, since many of us, there were many of us, they had to empty the schoolrooms of all the high schools in the city to make room for us. So they took out the furniture and fixtures from the classrooms, and they placed mattresses on the wooden floor, and this was our beds, and nurses and doctors came, poured over us, and they were with us day and night. There was a lot of pain. Many people felt very sad that now that they're free, now what? Now, who do they have? How can they face life alone? And chances of survival by their families was very slim based on what we saw throughout our adventures through the camps. And as we were in freedom, and as we were coming to freedom, many died from overeating, because the Danes broke through the barricades, came up to the train, and handed us brown bags. But we were so hungry, haven't eaten for several days, and we were so just skin and bones. And so I couldn't blame anybody for wanting to eat, but that's what they did. But our stomach shrank so much that it actually was stuck to the back of our bodies, and leaving a hollow area up front. So we had to eat very, very slowly. I lived on, oatmeal every day. I always liked oatmeal, and so that's what I had, and I Today, at the
Was
age
it
of
warm?
79, I'm still eating oatmeal because that's my, somehow one heals when one eats oatmeal.
You like it warm? Do you put
I like
something
it
in
hot.
it? Oh, you like it hot?
With milk.
Do you put anything in it, like raisins or nuts or anything?
No, nothing in it. Just one packet of blue packet of sugar,
Oh.
sugarless sugar. So we were fumigated from head to toe in Landskrona, and I'm sorry, that was in Malmö, and then we were taken to Landskrona. Since we were numbered into the thousands, we were distributed into the various schools in Landskrona. And I stayed at the, see if I can remember the name of the school. I stayed at the, I went to high school there eventually, and I don't remember the name of it. But I just used it the other day in my book, so I must know I must know the name of it. I know I do. I'm sorry, I can't remember it momentarily. But while we were in Landskrona, and as I was beginning to feel well, I began to want to be out in the schoolyard. And there were all these bicycles that the nurses and the doctors came on. And instead of automobiles, as we do here in the U.S., so one day I asked my doctor if I could use his bicycle. So he said, of course, anytime. He says, you can use any bicycle on the schoolyard, just to do that. And I was the only one who rode a bicycle, because I had my own bicycle in Czechoslovakia. We all had our bicycles. And so it was really good exercise for me as well. But while I was doing this, a Swedish family, behind the double fence, we had a double fence between us because many of us suffered from tuberculosis, typhus, and other serious ailments. And so they had to keep the civilians away from us so that we will not pass on to them illnesses from which we suffer, and they were afraid that perhaps illnesses for which they have no medications yet. So, of course, I learned that much later when I went to do research. I didn't know it then. So here we had a double fence between us, but on the other side of that fence, by the civilians, a couple with a young girl, just 1 year younger than I, came to visit me after a while, particularly me, and they always brought me something little to eat. And of course, I was not permitted to eat anything without the inspection of a nurse or the doctor. And so none of us were, but some people just ate it anyway. But so many people died as a result of this kind of eating. And it was such a shame that once you reached freedom and to die then after what we went through it's really a shame. So when I returned to Landskrona and to Malmö later, I always went to the cemetery, and there they were. Some of them had just first names on the little stone. They all had uniform stones. And in some cases, they knew when a person was born and when that person died. And on some stones, both their names were given. But they were around 19 to about 23 years old, very, very young. They just couldn't make it. Well, now that we were free, this gave us a lot of time to think about our families, which we couldn't do in Germany during the Holocaust period. And also Jewish organizations came to look us over and talk to us and offered us places to take us to. If somebody had no one, that person and was very, very young, such as I was, and I had nobody at the time. I just had no way of knowing if I had anybody alive. I began to write letters home, and no letters came for some time, but I kept writing, and I kept writing to the Czech address, to the Hungarian address, same street, same house, everything the same, only the name of the country was no longer Czechoslovakia. It became Hungary. Of course, when the war ended, the Soviet army liberated my home area, and so it became part of the Soviet Union. And it was part of the state of the Ukraine. And today, it's 2009, that area is now the independent country of the Ukraine. Now, I'm going to talk about the rest of my family, how they survived and who survived. My mother and my sister, Anushka, were liberated from Auschwitz-Birkenau by the Soviet Armed Forces on January 27th, 1945, and they liberated the prisoners. So after a couple of days' rest, my mother, because they had to come back from a march, a death march that they were on, and imagine there was nowhere to go. They had to come back to the camp and wait there. So they rested up, and then they started on their way home. Home was another country. They had to travel quite far to come home, and it took them over 2 months to get home, because the railroad tracks were bombed here and there. They have not been fixed. And so a farmer took them from a place to another. A train took them for a little bit longer. Then they marched when there was nothing else, and they walked home. And so that there was all this various kinds of transportation for them. Finally made it home, and they couldn't get into our home. They would not be, they just couldn't get the keys to the house. It was held at City Hall by the police, at the police station. So my brother Michael was liberated from slave labor camps back, I think, in November. I'm not quite sure exactly what date. And he already was home, but nobody was home yet. And he was so sad because he heard that they killed everybody, and he thought, since he was liberated so early, perhaps Mother and Anushka and I should have been liberated too so early. But he didn't know the whole score. Because Mother and Anushka were liberated toward the end of January, as I said, on the 27th, and liberated the prisoners. Now, I was in Sweden by then. 5 days before the war ended, I ended up in Sweden. And I didn't know anything about my mother, and she didn't know anything about me. So I was being searched for, to be taken to then Palestine, today's Israel, with other children who had nobody. But I got the form to fill out, but I never filled it out. I still have it today, and I gave a speech about it at Hadassah here in San Francisco. With that form, they enlarged it to a post size. My father, so I gave you, let's see, my mother and my sister, and then Michael. So we were liberated. And then my father and my brother Shandor were liberated in Dora Mittelbau. There they worked also in the mines, in the salt mines, and they worked also on the same project that I worked on in Bendorf. The same project, only they assembled it where they worked. And they tested these rockets where Dad and Shani worked, only 60 miles from where I worked. So after liberation, after I learned where my family was, I plotted these camps on a map to see where they were vis-a-vis my camps. I was absolutely horrified that my dad and my brother were only 60 miles from me, and neither of us knew that the other was alive. How nice it would have been. It would have been an incentive for all of us to work harder and just feel better and be ready for liberation. Well, they were liberated by the American Armed Forces. And right after liberation, my father was put into a hospital to recover. He was the oldest. And there were some very cruel things that happened, and my dad had to recover from it. My brother was so angry, he was ready to kill the Nazi, and Dad held him back, said, "Don't do it. Any day now we'll be free. Don't do it." And of course Dad didn't know, but that was enough to keep Shandor from doing something foolish. So my mother one day received a letter from my father that he's in a hospital and that he'll be home by Rosh Hashanah. Today, September, I think it's the 8th or 9th today, 2009, we are waiting a week from Friday to celebrate Rosh Hashanah again. And I always think of my father. When he came home, I was in Sweden. I didn't see my family for 17 years after the Holocaust. I stayed in Sweden because the Swedish family wanted to adopt me. They were not Jews. They were a wonderful, wonderful Christian family. They had a girl 1 year younger than I by the name of Gulan. And she came every day, once or twice, to visit me while I was behind bars. So eventually, the Red Cross permitted me to, I was released after a certain length of time in rehabilitation. You see, I didn't have any of those horrible illnesses, but I suffered from severe malnutrition. In fact, I'm still paying the price for that today. But otherwise, I'm very healthy, thank God, in every way. But I can't walk too well after 15 surgery. In 1962, I was finally permitted to go and see my family for the first time in 17 years, but only for 7 days, and not in our hometown, but in a far, far away in Lvov, what used to be Lemberg before the war. And since the Soviets took it in World War II, they have renamed it Lvov. And there 21 people came to visit me. It was absolutely incredible. And since I was a member of the choir here in our synagogue, I knew a lot of the pieces that we were going to sing during the high holy days. And for all the other holidays, I was a member of it for about 7 years. And I was a soprano. And here I went to the Soviet Union, and my family never gave up their Judaism. Secretly they prayed. and I secretly brought them my husband's talit, and gave it to my father from him. And he was just so impressed. And when I sang to him any part of the book that from which we pray, and to any melodies fitting to any of the high holidays or the other holidays, my family just couldn't get over it. But eventually I lost my voice because I sang into the night and they just couldn't get enough of it. So my brother said, could you sing this melody, or a nigun to that melody, the nigun to that prayer? And I would say, okay, which holiday are we celebrating? So they would tell me. I said, sure. And I would sing, and they just clapped their hands, and they said, my God, how could you have studied so much and learned so much? You would never have had that chance here. So thank God that you had a chance to do that in America. Well, it really, I'm already in America, and I haven't even told you I got here. But I lived in Sweden for 2 years, and I had a wonderful, wonderful family with a great relationship. My little Swedish sister was being confirmed in a Lutheran church, and she wouldn't go unless I went with her. So I went with her, and she had to come with me to the synagogue. So we had a very good arrangement. In the end, she began to study Judaism and married a Jewish man. And when I visited her next time, she took me into the kitchen before I touched anything. She says, okay, this is for milk products, and this is for meat products, and this one is for treif, not edible. And she said, this towel with the red decoration, that's for meat products. So remember the blood, meat products. And the yellow is for milk products. So I was just amazed, because of course I knew those things because I was brought up in an Orthodox household. But going back to the Soviet Union was really a very interesting experience. It's frightening, could be frightening, so anybody who has a faint heart should never do what I did. But nobody could keep me away from it once they gave me permission to go. And I was told not to visit any synagogues, not to visit any Jews when I go there, in order to keep me safe. Now, this is the Department of State that advised me. I listened to everybody, but then when I got there, I did what I think I should do, to bring some hope to those who were held captive from us and from our religion. And I brought Jewish calendars for the community. I went to services on straight from the airport in Leningrad at that time. Today it's St. Petersburg. I went directly by the main synagogue, and I told the driver to wait for me. And he wasn't allowed to take me to a synagogue. I said, I'll be right out. And so the front gate was all chained up. Nobody could go in there, so I knew that there must be another way. I went around and went in, and there was the mikvah, the ritual bath. And a lady was bent down, she was sort of cleaning up. And I talked to her first in German, and she did not answer me. And then I decided to use the best Yiddish I know how. And then she straightened out. She said, where do you come from? In Yiddish. And I said, from the United States. I am on my way to visit my family, whom I have not seen for 17 years. And I said, I want to come to services tomorrow. What time is it? So she said, come early. There will be a bar mitzvah, and the boy will be smuggled in and then smuggled out, because he's not allowed to have a bar mitzvah here. So that's exactly what I did. I had my cab take me to the synagogue, and I told him to come by for me. Now, this was very dangerous. Some people remember those periods. But to be there, it's like in the movies. There is the man sitting in the big couch, on the big chair, with a black hat and the black raincoat, and here he has the newspaper in front of him so that I won't see his face. I'm just trying to sign in at the hotel, and somebody's always with me, and I see that he keeps wanting to see where I am. And so I don't want to go up the stairs by myself to my room. So I decided just to walk around a little bit. I've been guessing a little bit. And finally I decided I'm going to bed. I'm just too tired to wait for this, to see what happens. So I went in there, and there is this flush toilet, and I just kept flushing it. I didn't want to hear anything. So eventually I, of course, stopped, and nobody came. But in the morning there he was again. It's incredible, just like in the movies. So for some reason I really wasn't afraid. I don't know. Whatever could happen to me, already I was very close to that, and I was familiar with it from the camp. So by this time, I just wanted to go and see my family, and I think they really just wanted to keep me away from it, and that was it. Well, I had a wonderful reunion with my family, and I think I gave them so much pleasure by bringing them these Hebrew chants about our liturgy. I think I could not have brought them a better gift than this. And I thank God for having been able to study it and enjoy it myself. I know whenever we got into a car, my family enjoyed practicing with me, and they learned it too in the process. Well, I guess by now you got it that I came to the United States. Well, yes, I did, and I'm right now sitting in my house in San Francisco on a hill talking to you, telling my odyssey to you. And thank you for listening. Because my father was a hero in World War I and was highly decorated, the Austro-Hungarian Empire was a German empire, and my father served in it, and his brother served in it. Well, my dad was exempted in the Second World War from wearing the yellow star. And his whole family was exempted. Not his brother, who fought also in that war, only his family. Imagine.
Okay. What were there others in the town who also? I was curious too. I mean, on a farm, did you slaughter the chickens?
Yes, we took it to the. We took the chickens to the.
The shochet?
Shochet. Oh, I saw the poor chicken running around without a head. Oh, it was...
It's true.
Oh, of course it's true.
Yeah.
What was hanging on... Oh.
Well, then, did they do the shluka kaparas?
Yes. We did. And it was the most beautiful selected chickens.
Oh.
Because they really believed,
Yeah.
This was sort of a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Okay, we give the best in return.
Yeah.
In return to doing something good that feels good. It's supposed to be healing. We know that it's healing.
Well, it's therapeutic.
It's therapeutic, exactly.
Yeah. And so, did you drink milk from the cow? There was
of course. Oh yes, and my mother.
I'm just imagining that your grandkids. I'm imagining your grandkids.
You know what? I had a hard time imagining it myself. My mother never could teach me how to how to
I'll get it.
milk. My hands would not, were too small for it. Says we wait a couple of years, she said. Well, at 14, you know.
And then you mentioned something about the igloo-shaped...
We have 2 ovens. Because we bake the masa for the entire community and all the little towns.
In your farm? Or, I mean,
in our house, you know.
In your house?
Yeah, we had a 7-room house, and behind it there was a well, and we had another structure where the ovens were. We baked our own bread, and we baked the matzahs for the community.
You know, it's funny, when we were in Kiev last year, we visited a synagogue, and they were baking all the matzah in the basement. And in fact, it was just before Passover, and I took a box home and had it at our Seder.
Oh.
Yeah, the Kiev.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah,
it somehow means more when you're away from home, doesn't it?
Well, to see, and then to also be told by this particular, the rabbi of that synagogue was an American.
Yes.
No, I don't think he was a Chabadnik. Yeah, he probably was Chabad. But it was, and then to be heard by another, be told by somebody else about the current anti-Semitism.
Yeah, that's right.
Matzah
I can't understand it. The economy is bad, the Jews did it. You see, we've been the scapegoats to...
Forever.
Yeah. And all this started with Jesus.
You know what?
This is the root of anti-Semitism.
It's part of it, but it's before that, and I'll tell you how I know that. I was a docent at the Magnus Museum in Berkeley, and there was a time when there was an outreach program, and a lot of us worked on different programs. I wanted to do the program on the then Holocaust. There was a Holocaust room for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And so I did the slideshow, and I called it When Hatred Reigns, and it was kind of a history of anti-Semitism through art and sculpture.
Oh.
And there was anti-Semitism even before Jesus. That was definitely the worst. But it was interesting, like you talk about, the research that that you've done. It was always, it was partly the otherness. Even in the Greek and Roman times, the Jews had different customs.
Oh yeah, they hated us because we had different beliefs. You see,
but
yeah, that's right.
I mean, so
how
it's the oldest. That's what's the oldest.
Yeah, that's where the strange clothes for the Chabadniks come from. You know that from that
Poland.
period, from Poland, and from the 13th, 14th century
with the strangles and
yeah.
I mean, I cannot understand that.
I can't understand how we ended up adopting it. That's
today. I mean,
they are really very smart people.
Oh, they are
very learned.
But why they would choose the outfit of some Polish anti-Semitic nobleman?
Well, that's something I can't understand.
I know. I don't. I can't. Funny. I feel. I was talking to somebody. The man with the purple shirt. The man who was married to the purple lady.
Yes, yes.
We were talking, had nice conversations with him, and he was telling me that he's got some, Muslims in his family and different things.
Yeah.
And I was saying I have this problem when I see somebody who is, a woman with the black and the whole thing, or the one with just that. So I feel two things. One is, this is America. People have the right to their religion and to practice their religion.
Yeah. Exactly.
On the other hand...
Exactly. There is that little fear. Yeah, they don't consider us equals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Somebody showed me this in the Soviet Union. When I wondered, why is it that the Soviet Union and the United States can get along? And the people in the United States are such nice people, generous people, good people. I'm sure the Soviet Union couldn't be any different. So she took me to a lake where they have had swans, and there was they were separated by a net in the middle. So we stood there before she said anything. I said, "Why is it that there is a mechitza?" I thought, between the white swans and the black swans. So she said, "I'm glad you noticed it, because that's what I wanted to tell you. That no matter, they're both beautiful." You said that they could be good on both sides, but there is a separation. They just fight like cats and dogs when they get together. Well, that's what people do too.
Yeah.
So they have to find something ugly, something unacceptable in the other person to put it down. In order to put somebody down, the Jews were always that part of civilization.
Now, this same
that we
man,
bounce
was
back
this
each time.
Stanley? He was telling me something about parrots in Berkeley. That there's a group of parrots, and one parrot looks different from the others. And the group are always attacking the one that looks different.
Yeah, they don't like each other,
Yeah.
and we're considered different in human
But
society.
then I have to say that I feel a little twinge of hypocrisy, and I'll tell you why. Because if I see someone like Amish,
Oh yeah,
I think, I don't care. So, but then when I see a Chabad
yeah.
walking in
care.
Berkeley, or with the tzitzis hanging out,
It's such a personal thing. I don't understand why they have to have the tzitzis hanging out.
I don't know either.
Yeah, one granddaughter married a very Orthodox boy. They both graduated from UCLA, and then they married. Of course, went to the wedding, met his family. So they wouldn't even talk to us. We had never even talked to them. I had no idea. Well, I can't imagine. I said to Carl, look, don't fret over it. If they don't want to talk to us, maybe we shouldn't meet them. Well, now they want to meet us.
Now they will?
Now they want to meet us.
Oh my God.
Well,
After how many years?
No, they just got married. They had a little boy, adorable. And really, their son is so lovely. But the parents, they came from...
Here's Carl.
Hi. Hi, darling.
Didn't you think we would have gone home by now?
So we didn't hear finish the story about the diamond in the shoe.
I know,
yeah.
but I wasn't asked the
oh,
question.
Because this camera's been running all the
Oh my
time.
gosh, I didn't
Oh my
realize
God.
that.
It's been running all the time.
Okay, Diamond.
So she's over there. She's snoozing.
Oh my God.
She's saying snoozing.
Diamond.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's
please,
Carl's coming down the road.
please, honey, be
You're
quiet.
probably hungry. Hey,
I was missing you.
Isn't that sweet?
Okay, Bob, Diamond.
I gotta see this.
Oh,
I keep thinking we
well,
should
if this
have
is
a
going,
birthday
then
on
tell me about the diamond.
Oh,
at the end.
okay. So, you would like to know about
You were worried about her keeping it. You wanted her to get
boy.
rid
Could
of
have
it.
the diamond
So
that my
she
mother
could've
saw
found
her
in
drop it
everybody.
in
That's
her
right. But this
boot or
is
something.
boot.
didn't come out quite right, but we know what the
Yes,
words are.
this, I need to look over here if you
okay.
don't
Oh,
mind.
yeah, right.
This is the story about Auschwitz-Birkenau, where we worked at the Canada work detail. My mother found a large diamond, and she said to me, wouldn't it be nice to start with this when we get back home? And I thought, my mother is thinking about getting home and being free one of these days. I couldn't believe it. Actually, that was a hopeful sign for me as a young girl. And I said, Mother, get rid of it. I don't want to have to worry about you. You have 2 daughters. Imagine if we are left without a mother right here in this place at this time. And so she indicated that she'll do something, but I didn't know what it was. So in between work, she just bent down to do something with her foot or whatever, and she slipped the diamond into her shoe. That day, of all days, we were required to remove everything. They were checking us after work. And so between the barrack, they kept all this clothes and everything people had brought along from home that we had to give up to the Nazis. Between that barrack and the road, there was another road leading into the barrack, and it had gravel over it, nice, good-sized gravel. And so that's where we had to sit down and remove all our clothes for an inspection. So I looked at my mother, and she knew what I wanted, and I watched her take her shoe off very carefully, doing it in front, and then she held onto the heel and turned it upside down. When she did that, I knew that she got rid of the diamond, and I saw Mother sort of push the little stones over something, and I figured that's what she's doing, because we couldn't really communicate so well, especially at that time when we were being watched very carefully for any sign, and so had nothing to worry about anymore, and everything went fine. But had she been found, she would have been beaten to death.
Oh.
Such price to
So
pay.
she just covered it up with dirt
Yeah.
by turning her shoe over.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
boy.
So
that
whoever
probably
went
saved
there
their
with
life. That probably saved their life. Right?
oh, of course,
Right.
of course.
That
Yeah.
diamond is still somewhere
Yes.
somewhere now.
Yeah, we were right in front of it, and I said to Carl, we visited the place. How many years later? 47 years later. I said to Carl, I bet the diamond is still under that gravel
Oh
somewhere.
boy. You should go there and start looking for it.
Not me. I don't care.
This is funny. You put
I
this
wouldn't
stuff
want
on
it.
the computer.
I
Huh?
don't.
Yeah,
It's,
I got that from my son.
I just can't thank